Good morning. A couple things I want to share with you. Hope everyone's having a good week. It's Thursday morning. Almost there. Almost there. Um, I got a question yesterday from a fellow airman. We actually went to tech school together, and I didn't remember her at first. I saw the name, and we used to talk, as far as just communicating and whatnot. Um, but yeah, we met in tech school, and she's a staff now, and now she has airmen under her or around her, and at least in the vicinity, that is struggling in regards to their progression in the military. It's a place I've been before. In a lot of cases, it's a place that you really never escape, meaning a place of progress. Um, I don't think there's ever a point where you know everything, because once you hit that point, typically, arguably around staff or tech, you're probably in a new position that you've never been in before. Once you make master, you're probably in a flight chief position. So, you're supervising a flight rather than supervising a couple airmen. And so there's constant progression, and that's really the point of the military environment. Is you should be progressing over the years. It's something I've always aimed for. At certain points, you do burn out because you get tired of just constantly trying to grow and to build. But that's the point of life. If you stop swimming, you die. You stop growing, you're dying. If you stop living, you're dying. So, yeah. The question was kind of vague in terms of the details. This is also a finance airman. I'm not going to give any details away, just for the sake of having some, privacy and what have you. But let me see what I can gather real quick. By the way, we have a little time this morning, so if you have a question regarding anything, throw it in the chat, and we'll talk. We'll chat a little bit. What else we got? So basically, it says her civilian supervisor. So this is a finance airman who has a civilian supervisor, which is not uncommon. And it goes on to say it's just horrible. And her military supervision brushes her training to the side. I've experienced this firsthand. It's unfortunately common. Maybe not specifically in this manner or in this way, but you experience this more often than not, where you're just coming in and you're not exactly solving a problem yet in the squadron. You're fresh out of tech school. They just replace CDCs with something called Blackboard, and about to replace that with something else. So you're not exactly solving any problem. They can't hand you a program and say, "Yo, run the DTS program. Just run this." You're not at that point yet, not in your knowledge or experience. You may still be waiting on accesses, which is also part of the issue, which is actually quite abnormal. She's a senior airman, doesn't have access to the system she needs, which again, I believe she's in the reserves. So their promoting dynamics are slightly, different than active duty. So I can see how someone can. I'm not sure exactly how that works. Senior airman with no accesses. Yeah, I don't know. Goes on, and they used her STP for civilian meal pay job and not the finance comptroller. Yeah, okay, that's a lot of other stuff. Couple things I want to share real quick. 3 points on how an airman can assist in their own progression, especially in the case where your supervision is not as zealous as you are, or maybe that they're not even on 10 in terms of ensuring that you're progressing in a given environment, such as your military squadron. There's 3 principles that you must point to in terms of wisdom. Wisdom, people. I'm not going to get into any specifics because wisdom covers it. There's no point to be more specific than necessary when I can give you a wisdom principle that says, do this in any case. You seek wisdom. You don't have a work problem. You don't have a military problem. You don't have a finance problem. You don't have a relationship problem. You have a wisdom problem. Wisdom is the proper response to a variable, to stimuli, to a problem, to pain, to stress. The proper response in every case, is wisdom. So, number 1, accountability. that's what we start with over here. Accountability. A couple follow-up questions. Have you already received any instructions? Is a question that you should ask yourself. Or if you need to go back to your supervisor and ask them again, Have you already received any instructions to date that you have not completed? That's the first step. Is don't ask for more, don't ask for excess, don't ask for different until you've utilized what you currently have. Solving problem with subtraction. Sometimes you don't need subtraction or addition. Sometimes you already have what you need. You have an instruction. What is your response to an instruction? If you don't understand, ask a question, ask a follow-up question. Have you already received any instructions? One thing you would notice, especially in a military environment, and honestly, this applies to anyone who's on salary, is that effort cannot be enforced, which is number 2. Effort and pursuit. Continuous pursuit, consistent pursuit. They can't be enforced in a world of rules. Now, they can be enforced in a world of regulation, standards. And we have both in the military. Learning is relative. It's subjective to the individual. So you can have a group of you can have 5 airmen sitting there, and you can teach a lesson. 3 of them will catch it, 2 of them won't. That's just how that works. You can have a PowerPoint. 2 people will be asleep, 3 will be bored. They may or may not retain it. You can have an audible lesson where you're behind a wall speaking to a microphone, and everybody will be asleep. You can have a hands-on activity that teaches that the further enforces the lesson that you just taught. 4 people enjoy it, 1 person be bored. It's how the human mind works. Some people are more predisposed to certain ways of learning than others. That's what makes it subjective. So when you have variables such as effort, in terms of someone going out of their way to learn something and wanting to learn something, and then asking follow-up questions to ensure that they learn something and retain the information, that's where you lose out on a lot of people, is the effort piece. Because it's on you to give effort. I went to a spin class this morning. I've gone every day this week. Tomorrow will be 5 for 5 spin classes. The instructor can only give me instructions. They say increase the level. It's up to me whether or not I do it. But they're not sitting there, looking over my shoulder to make sure I add a level. My effort requires certain things. And that's where a lot of young airmen enter. Once you've left basic training, which is obedience, tech school, which is obedience, you get to operational, it's still obedience, but now there's discipline attached. Discipline really starts in tech school, where you have the option to study or not to study. And your results determine whether or not your decision was sound. The results. There's no one over your shoulder saying, did you study last night? No, the results show whether or not you studied. So therefore, discipline is not required, because now you have a choice. Basic training, it's compliance. It's obedience. You do or you don't. And if you don't, you go elsewhere. You go back home. You're civilian now. And so a lot of people fail to realize the differences between, once you switch environments, there's different rules. There's different rules of engagement. There's different variables to account for. You go from basic training and they tell you to do something, and you either comply or you go home. There's no in between. You get to tech school and they say, all right, you have the option to study. We taught you a lesson today. You have the option to go home and study, do your homework, or not. That's on you. But there's a test that determines whether or not you get through it. That test is the standard. That, all right, studying, you can study for 10 minutes or an hour. That's your decision. But that test is a standard. Studying is the rule. Hopefully you know that difference. Get operational, and now you're dealing with discipline, effort, obedience, all of it. And that's where you see someone who progresses very quickly, and someone very slowly, someone not at all. I promoted every year that I've been in the military, every single year. A couple of them were guaranteed. So of course we look at that, came in with no stripes, none. Got A1C, guaranteed. Senior Airman, guaranteed. But I got BTZ on Senior Airman, which gave me a 6-month advantage on my peers. Made staff first time. But that's relative to my effort. Now, some people didn't have to study at all. Some people just woke up and did what they did, and they volunteered, or they didn't volunteer. Some people go through life and it seems to be easy, but they struggle in different areas than you do. There was a guy in my tech school, my first AFSC, and I would look at him. I'm like, this guy knows everything. What was his name? Mitchell. Mitchell. He's if you guys know Mitchell, tell him Isaiah is looking and remembers him. This guy knew everything. He works in RF, radio frequency transmissions systems. If you guys know Mitchell, he should be either senior airman or staff at this point, possibly even tech, knowing him. But no, we came at the same time. So he should be a staff. He's probably a staff right now. But this guy, I would observe him, and like I'm fresh out of basic training, honor grad, and of course he was honor grad too. I'm like, Brett, this guy, he just retains information. I don't know how he does it. This guy just knows, and hears, and he knows now, and it's just how it works. And he was a great runner, and I was like, Brett, how is he good at both? But I never saw him on the basketball court. Like it was like obviously, the point being, people. The point being is that someone is going to have one area of strength, and it may be different than yours. So the point is not to compare yourself to their area of strength. The point is to see the principle and say, if I'm not as good as they are in that area, meaning I can't just walk in and excel, I need to prepare. I need to give effort to at least match his results. So whatever effort is required to bridge the gap, that's my responsibility. So just keep those things in mind as far as effort cannot be enforced. If the PT test started including splits, we're going to measure your flexibility. There is no standard for flexibility. It's relative. You don't measure someone's flexibility. They either are or they're not. You observe someone who's flexible, but how do you measure whether or not somebody's flexible? What is the ideal standard of flexibility? But running, my form, you can't enforce my form on running. How do you enforce, bro, you're not running upright. You're not running slightly leaning forward. You're leaning back. How do you enforce that? How do you enforce someone's walking gait? You can't. But if I say from this point to this point, this set distance of 1.5 miles, you will finish that in under 13 minutes. No exceptions. If you leave the track at all, if your foot touches grass, disqualified. You do it over. Those are standards. And a lot of people fail to realize the difference between a splits and a running and a time limit in terms of one can be enforced, one cannot. So right now you're in one of those gray areas. I never got her name, the airman that's struggling. But in terms of realizing what a standard is, right now a lot of your leadership may be one of those gray areas where it's just effort. They're not trying hard to train you, bring you up to speed, get your accesses done. It might require your effort. You can't enforce their effort. So maybe you can force your own effort and say, I'm going to try until I get my stuff. I'm going to get workflow. I'm going to make sure I got DTS access. Make sure I'm gained and make sure I'm going to take advantage. I'm going to make sure I have what I need. Make sure I got my DJMS. I'm going to go out of my way to ensure that I have what I need. And that leads me into, we covered number 2, which is effort, pursuit. Also, you have other airmen around you, hopefully. I don't think many squadrons around, at least finance squadrons, have less than 5 people unless you're deployed or some specific situation like two deep slot or something. There's probably other airmen around you that have more experience than you. It's on you to go in pursuit of information. Like question. Go sit with them. Go shadow them. But that's on you. Don't wait for someone to tell you to go over there. If you want to learn, if you need to learn, if you know you're not up to speed, if somebody asks you a simple question, what is DTOD? How many travel days do I get? What is flat rate per diem, or do I need my receipts? Well, what is TLA? What's the difference between TLE and TLA? If you know that you need information, go in pursuit of it. Ask someone. If they send you to the regs, effort again. Now it's time to go read regulations. No one wants to do that. Now I have to go read regulations. But that's where effort comes in. And you realize that the more effort I put in, typically the more results I get. So number 3, document. And this is where we get to not so much legal ramifications, but up channeling in terms of, all right, I've handled my issues at the lowest level possible, and then we go up one. So you talk to your supervisor, Listen, I need accesses. I can't do my job. I can't certify these documents without jumps. It's not supposed to happen. I don't know how you're doing it properly, or at all for that matter. How do you certify documents if you don't have jumps? How do you gain someone without jumps? Sure, you can code it up, but you know, document meaning emails. Not he said, she said, not your word, not a text message, not a phone call, not a verbal conversation. Once you've had all that, because of course, I'm not saying just have every single conversation. At first, every single conversation should be verbal, upfront, face to face, text message. Yo, I need this. I need help with this. Can you advise me as my supervisor? Can you advise me to do the following? Once that fails, and again, effort consistency as far as if something's not occurring on at least a weekly basis as far as training is concerned, because obviously people have jobs to do, and there's not a ton of time in the day, but there's time in the day, meaning after work, before work, during lunch. There's time throughout a day to get some training, and so you should be learning something new daily, a process. That's what I focused on, is learning a process, not so much knowing the why, the context, the how, but give me what. This is what step 1. That. Step 2, that. Step 3, that. You go from there. Once you get the what, you can do a process. If they say gain someone, you can have steps to follow. When I audited, I was doing travel vouchers for the reserves, which they should have been doing their own vouchers when I was at Andrews. I was following a cheat sheet of step 1. And most processes have a checklist that you go off of. If you're doing a travel voucher, you'll see there's a checklist typically that goes on top that is meant to help with avoiding rejects. And I don't want to get too far into the finance lingo and all that, but you get the point. You get the point. Once you've done everything you can do as far as asking, seeking, knocking, pushing, interrupting, pressing, applying pressure, you've tried everything. I've repeatedly asked my supervisor, can you train me on something? And they say, all right, I got you after lunch, and then it doesn't happen. Cool, things happen. Wednesday comes. Yo, I know you're supposed to train me something on Monday. It didn't happen. Cool. Can you train me today? I got you. It doesn't happen. Friday comes. All right, cool. Maybe give it another week. Things happen. We have training exercises and people get voluntold. It happens. But after a couple weeks, a month, yeah, it's time to up channel. So from there, again, you've exhausted your options: text messages, phone calls, face-to-face, email your supervisor. All right, this is what I would do. This is what I've done historically. This email, like, good morning. This email is for documentation purposes. I have asked, on this date, I asked for training, didn't get anything. It's now this date, whatever. Send. You keep it respectful, keep it with all protocols necessary. And the email is for documentation purposes. They have a copy, you have a copy. If they need to respond to it, they will. Or they'll come to you verbally. Now, there's levels to documentation. So that's usually the first step with your direct supervisor is you've exhausted all channels of communication, then you document it with an email. Once you've done that, it didn't work. 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Time is passing, nothing is occurring. Nothing's changing. You haven't progressed. Cool. Next step. Who is the next supervisor directly above them? Probably a NCOIC, a tech sergeant. Same thing. Verbally, text messages, face-to-face conversation. A conversation occurs. Then an email. This email is for documentation purposes. I need help with this. I'm just following up on our conversation that we had. Da-da-da-da-da. Cool. Then you give it time because things happen. Again, it's the military. 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It shouldn't take this long. 4 weeks happens. Nothing. I've spoken to my direct supervisor, their supervisor, NCOIC, no traffic, no traction. I'm still in the same place. Now, again, usually when an email occurs saying this is for documentation purposes, that's a signal, it's a clue I'm like, listen, I don't want to have to keep up channeling this. Can you just help me? Like, I work for you. Train me. Just train me, do my job. Train me once. Take good notes. Train me, do my job. That's all I'm asking. I'm asking you to go out and have a beer with me. I'm saying, as my direct supervisor, simply train me on this task. Then from there, you've exhausted direct supervisor, NCOIC. What's above that? Usually the NCOIC is probably around a staff or tech. Right about above there, you have a flight chief. Flight chief, same thing. Conversation, verbal, text, phone call, if necessary. You have a conversation with that person. Then you document with the email. Just follow up. This email is for documentation purposes. Just want to thank you for taking the time to talk to me. We talked about this, and this. Hopefully this will resolve. Moving on from there, and I'll probably should make an email on how to word properly an email as far as communicating a certain amount of leverage that you have, because you have options, but it's imperative. Hear me. If you don't hear nothing else, it's imperative that you communicate properly during these situations, because you can quickly alienate the human behind the uniform. Quickly, the uniform. This tells you how much knowledge I should have and how much I get paid. That's what this does. But this, well, that's who I work for. But this is the person. And this person can be alienated if you don't communicate properly. You can have a direct supervisor that does not like you, but who is also responsible for your career and your progression and the time that you work and the many hours you work. That's what they're responsible for under this. But this, that's where wisdom comes in, as far as how do I communicate properly with another human being? Did I communicate respect and honor as far as their position is concerned? Because yesterday's video, position versus leverage. This is positional power. This can be leverage if used properly. This is the ultimate leverage. That's personal leverage. Positional power. Don't get those confused. The second you get confused, you will experience pain. Maybe not physical, but you will know chaos has ensued. Order has been lost because I crossed a line that I didn't know was there because I didn't seek wisdom. Communicating properly is probably the number one variable in terms of getting these situations resolved at the lowest level. Because hopefully you shouldn't have to go to your flight chief level in E7 to resolve, can you train me on my job? It should not ever get that high. It shouldn't even reach your NCOIC. It should start with your direct supervisor, a simple conversation, get something and again, documentation. Send an email invite. You say you're going to train me at this time on this date. I'm going to send you an email invite that's going to remind you, it's going to remind me. It's going to be on the calendar. So you can't plan anything around it because it will send an alert. You're trying to plan two things at the same time. You will notice how adding a little bit of structure, that's what documentation is. It's a structured evidence that something was supposed to or something did occur. It's just structured, but it's impartial. It's not he said, she said. It's not I said, my supervisor said this, and then I said this, and then no. When there's documentation, there's black and white, there's timestamps, there's digital signatures, there's an email. No one can refute it. It's quite difficult to send an email without adding certain things in there, like a signature, a digital signature. You have to have a cat card to send an email. So things don't happen by accident. As far as I communicated this, they communicated this back, and then nothing happened. Like, no, a conversation has to happen at a higher level now, because yes, things happen, but for a span of a month, I've been asking you for the same thing. I took accountability for number one. I took accountability for my actions, for my words. I'm exhausting my effort in my pursuit by asking people around me. I'm getting other people to train me, but you get the point. So, who in my DMs? All right. What else we got? So yeah, the last one was document. Once you've exhausted direct supervisor, NCOIC, flight chief, it should never get above the flight chief, where you're going to superintendent. Superintendent can be exchanged possibly for a flight commander, which is usually a second lieutenant, first lieutenant, possibly a captain. But it should rarely get to that level of leadership where you have to go to a flight commander and say, I can't get training for this. I have documentation dating back months. I gave my NCOIC, I gave my direct supervisor a month, nothing. I gave my NCOIC a month, nothing. Gave my flight chief a month, nothing. That's 3 months of me exhausting 1 through 3 in terms of these steps. Quick review of them. Accountability. Have I received any instructions yet? If they give me instruction, what was my response to the instructions? Did I complete the instructions given to me? What did I receive 2875s that I did not complete, which are just access documents? Did they send me access documents to complete and they're just sitting in my inbox because I by accident, read it already and then I just forgot? Have you received instructions? That's the first step to the next season of your life, to an open door, is an instruction. Whose instruction have you chosen to follow? So that's number 1, accountability. Number 2, effort, pursuit. Other airmen around you. There are people around you that know probably more than you do. Unless you're at the top of the pyramid, there's usually people around you that know what they're doing on some level. Pursue them. Pursue their knowledge. Ask them questions. That's number 2. And number 3, document. Once you've exhausted 1 through 3, as far as I've done everything within my power at my rank that I can, I've used all my leverage as far as what I can do. I have emails documenting back to 3 months ago of talking to my direct supervisor, NCOIC, flight chief. I have no traction. Nothing has been accomplished. Now you're at superintendent, flight commander level, second lieutenant, first lieutenant, captain, possibly. It almost, I can't think of any case where a training issue or a communication issue gets to the commander level. It should never go there. No. Now, in certain cases, you might need to go to an IG, where now I have to go to someone outside of our unit who's responsible for ensuring that certain things take place. I don't think a training issue would need to go to IG, Inspector General. I don't think a communication issue or a personal issue or he doesn't like me, possibly, but that decision comes down to wisdom. And after you've gone through 1 through 3, as far as the steps, accountability, document, effort, pursuit, talking to other airmen, and then of course you've gone through your direct chain of command as far as direct supervisor, NCOIC, flight chief, flight commander, superintendent. If your entire leadership chain is out to get you and you can't get any help, then of course you go to the IG. But in most cases, in the most general sense, you will notice that people are out here trying to help you. Hence, I got this question on Facebook and I'm making a video about it as a random staff sergeant. I will probably guess that the staff sergeant next to you or one of them in your flight cares. They care on some level. Because before we put all this on, we got this, the human. And again, communicating properly comes down to wisdom. There's really no right or wrong, but there's the end result that you want. There's no right or wrong. Yelling, whispering, which one is right? But if you look at the end result that you desire, the end result determines your means. So do I yell at this person who outranks me, who has positional power? Or do I communicate properly via email and saying, I need this accomplished? I'm not asking you for anything crazy. I'm not asking you to pay my bills. I'm asking you to train me because that's your job. So I hope that brings some context. I'm gonna take a look at the chat. But I hope that brings some context as far as, there's a structure in place to dealing with, bad leadership. I'll probably adjust the title. But just as far as if there's a disagreement, miscommunication, you're having an issue back and forth as far as I want something, I need something, they have the ability to give it or it's their job to do it. They're getting paid to do a certain job and it's not being accomplished. I don't have accesses. I don't have the training. I'm not getting something that I need to do my job. That's an issue. And so of course there's a structured way of going about it. There's a wise way of doing everything. Wisdom is simply doing something the best way you can possibly do it. Excellence is the highest quality you're capable of. So you combine excellence, the highest quality you're currently capable of, and wisdom, the right way of doing something, the right way of approaching a problem solution. You tend to get desirable results, and you don't alienate everyone in the process. You don't lose friendships possibly, because again, you're working with these people 8 to 12 hours a day. The last thing you need is to be alone. To be alone day in, day out. So that's the video. I'm gonna take a quick look at the chat. Gotta go. But I hope this has been some help. I'm gonna send this link to my friend. Hopefully this can shine some light on the situation. But yeah, there are a lot of people that go through this, and there's a right way of addressing it. There's a right way of using certain protocols, certain principles, values, where you can outthink your opponent. I don't need to be stronger than you. I don't need to be faster. I don't need to outrank you. I just need to think, not to feel, not to just kind of guess and stab in the dark. No, think. Take a second, categorize the emotion, and think. Realize that your emotions are not your thoughts. Thoughts are a result of your emotions. Your emotions are notifications. It's like a text message. The text message is not what you are or who you are or the content. You are your response. Wisdom is saying, I am the response to anything that happens to me. I am the response. What else we got? Hiram says, shout out to my member. Question: if I'm almost 47 and I was never allowed to join any branch of the U.S. military, how do I learn any job skills, technical or otherwise, barely paying bills? Hiram, one thing I would do is pursue a trade school. That's what I would do if I was in your position. Pursue a trade school. It's one thing to go just solve a problem at a retail position, or you're working a job. You're solving a problem. Cool. You might be doing construction or whatever, plumbing. But going to get a trade, a marketable skill that you can get paid for, that is rare in nature. It's rare in nature. Go in pursuit of that. It may cost some money up front, but the dividends are what you're going after, the return on investment. So a trade school, find something that you're interested in. Plumbing, electrical engineer, pretty much any engineer. You have chemical engineer, mechanical engineer, electrical engineer. Go in pursuit of a trade. Go back to college. Go back to college. But go make sure you're aiming for the STEM fields as far as something that is actually marketable in today's job market. You don't want to be aiming for an art degree and colonial, classical era, and no. Aim for a trade that does not go under. Like, let's say there was a hurricane tomorrow and wiped out everything. What would be the number one jobs necessary to rebuilding society? Aim for those. Hope that helps. What else we got? Appreciate everybody joining in. I'm still trying to figure out the time zones across America again, because apparently when I go to Texas, I go to Lubbock, Texas, they're an hour ahead of where I am, which is wild. And I'm like, can I just get a universal time zone? Is that too much? Gabriel Sarazin asks, which is a very good question. Why do the toxic people seem to get promoted and the good ones get out? Well, and this might be a very unpopular opinion, but I'm going to give it anyway because I believe it. When you have people going to war, you use this analogy. When you go into war, you have two sides. You have the side that has no rules, none. Their mission is to win, and you have the side that has regulation and don't do this and make sure you don't do that, and actually talk first and be nice and actually ask them about their family and their kids and how long they've been deployed. You have two sides of it, and you have one side that has a ton of rules like Batman, that I'm not going to kill nobody, I'm not going. They have all these rules, and you have the side that has zero rules and their only mission is to win. That's typically where you can put toxic and good, where you have toxic who are unknowingly, in a lot of cases, following principles, because loudness kind of gets mistaken for being assertive or being confident. And so you have some people who are louder than other people, and the people that are probably, they have a good nature or they're good intentions, they're not as loud as the people who are just obnoxious. One thing you would notice in the military is that it's quite reactive. It's quite reactive. I would say very reactive, where we kind of wait for things to break and then we fix them. And then now we know, all right, don't do that anymore. If you walk into a military environment, you will notice signs everywhere of don't do this, don't do this, that's not allowed. All the regulations are typically a response of what someone did that ended up bad. It's a response. And so you have a lot of cases where the people who are good and quiet and small and they stay to themselves and they don't mess with anybody, they do what they're told, they're very obedient. And then you have some people who are just the exact opposites. What does the military value? The military tends to see, and I want to speak for them, but I don't speak for the military in any capacity. I speak for myself. I am in the uniform, so I'm careful what I say. But you will notice a trend that a lot of people who are just, they have the appearance or they're easily perceived as a leader, they tend to lead because a lot of them just say yes to everything. They're just quick. They're quick. And sometimes you can beat a lot of people just by being quick, having no rules. They don't overthink everything. They don't think anything through. They just kind of go. They just go. And a lot of times the military values availability over capability. Sometimes you win just because you were there. That's why a lot of people get voluntold because you're available. Go there. Go. The Marines operate a lot. If you observe the Marines from a quite objective standpoint, even without, in-depth knowledge, you can see they value availability. Who is here? If you want to join the Marines, we'll take you as long as you're healthy. We just need, send us a body. Send us a body. While the Air Force, a lot of cases prioritize, all right, we want to see what's upstairs. Yes, you're a body. Yes, you're healthy. Yes, you can run and you can do whatever. But we're not just taking bodies. No, because our mission does not need, per se, your body primarily. We need your mind primarily. And your body is attached, obviously. So here's some fitness requirements. But yeah, we mostly care about your mind. That's the difference between branches. So it's unfortunate that you perceive toxic people to kind of win and get promoted, but it's still possible to promote by not being toxic. I don't see myself as toxic in any way. I'm sure someone in this world perceives me as toxic. It's cool. But I was able to promote every single year I've been in the military. Obviously the first two being guaranteed, but after that, it's still possible because the rules are universal. Now, some people might get more volunteer opportunities because they're quicker to the draw. They're more loud. They're more obnoxious. They're more out there. They're type A personalities, more extroverted. They may get more opportunities mainly because they're constantly going in pursuit of those things. Which are principles which apply to everyone. You can be a good person and go in pursuit of what you want. You don't need to be obnoxious. You don't need to be loud. You have to make yourself known, which is being assertive, being confident. So, and of course, those things don't come overnight. Confidence is a result of past victories, of experiencing past victories. That's how you get confidence. So also, confidence also comes from a state of preparation, of being prepared, for a given task or a milestone that you must pass. So hope that helps. Don't be discouraged. Don't get out. Don't let anyone put you out. Not everyone is toxic. That word gets thrown around so much where we're just constantly labeling. I don't like you, so toxic. You said this about me, toxic. I don't agree with you, toxic. We can't label everyone that because then everyone's toxic. At some point, you'll get labeled toxic. And then everyone's toxic, which means no one's toxic. So now the word has to be redefined. Now words don't have meaning anymore because we're just labeling everything. That's why we have a dictionary, so we can define words properly and then put them in a sentence properly. So now the sentence has meaning. Hope that helps. Morning, Allie. Lucas, I do not cut my own hair, nor will I ever cut my own hair. that is forbidden. Barbershop down the street took care of your boy. GGS, do you have any advice to someone wanting to join the military and wants to go special forces? Yes. I made a video on don't be seduced by special operations. Go check that out. Short answer, know what you're joining. Meaning you need to talk to someone who's actually in it or has done it recently. Meaning you need a well-rounded, objective view, not someone who just absolutely loves it and has nothing bad to say about it. You need a well-rounded 360 view of what you're embarking on. because this is something that everyone can get into and not everyone can stay in. It's not meant for the bulk of the military. It's the reason why there's the Air Force, there's the Army, there's the Marines, there's a Space Force, there's a Navy, there's a Coast Guard. There's reason why there's different branches, because not everyone is cut from the same cloth in terms of a given task. Not everyone can be a Marine. I can't be in the Navy because I cannot swim. There's some branches I can't be a Marine because I can't swim. I could be in the Army, but I don't no. I'm Air Force. So just know what you're doing, because regret will teach you very quickly that your decisions were not sound. You did not research properly. Regret will teach you that. So hope that helps. How much money can you realistically save in a 4-year term? I was going to answer before I saw the word realistically. I can say all of it. You can save. So short answer, your expenses will be based on what you create. Meaning if you have a family, you created that expense. If you have a wife, husband, that's an expense. You created that. If you have a cell phone, you created that expense. If you have a TV, Wi-Fi, car, you created that expense. You can live for free and live in the dorms and have no other bills, but that's your decision. So whatever you're coming in with or whatever you create after you join, that's your decision in terms of how many bills you have, your debt to income ratio. It has more so to do with your decisions than anyone else's. So hope that helps. Real quick, what's your current rank, Staff Sergeant? What's your rank goal? Don't really know. Go from enlisted officer? Not at all. Sorry, I had to give a short answer. I got to go. Very good point. Being available to long, confident, and willingness to say yes will get you promoted faster. That's facts. Thank you all for joining. I'm headed to work. But I will see you in the next stream. Hope this provided a little bit of context on how to address certain issues in the workplace. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect. You have too many humans in a certain place. At some point, something will go wrong. But that's the point of wisdom, is to address when something goes wrong. That's the point of contracts, is to address disagreements. Not agreements, but disagreements. So seek wisdom. People. This video say was